On this week's episode, we preview Gamescom. I'll try it again. On this week's episode, we preview Gamescom. Disney makes a final decision on James Gunn. And which is more fun to watch right now, WWE or NXT? All this and more as we reach our next stop, the PCC Multiverse. And we're back with another episode of the PCC Multiverse. This is Gerald Glassford from Pop Culture Cosmos and Game Source. We truly appreciate you being part of the show each and every time we air a new episode. But it wouldn't be a PCC Multiverse without my good friend. He is the man in red right now for Humanica Media. You gotta listen to everything that they're producing right now on humanicamedia.com. Also as well, Humanica Media on YouTube, Facebook, check them out there. And of course, their great show, Topicocalypse. It's my good friend. It is Josh Peterson. What's up, man? Friday.
Hey, Friday, yeah. Just sitting on the computer, just doing Friday stuff, ready for Friday to be over and the weekend to start. And ready to talk some pop culture, of course.
Absolutely. And we're going to be having a great show here today. We've got Rob McCallum standing by in the Cosmic Crossfire. He's going to be talking more about the James Gunn situation. It looks to be more of a finality situation because he recently had a meeting with execs from Disney, and I guess an ultimate decision has been made in regards to the future of the Guardians of the Galaxy franchise. So he's going to discuss more on that. Greg Hall from We Podcast and We Know Things. You got to check out their show today on Podbean, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and many more outlets. He and I are going to be previewing WWE SummerSlam, but also NXT TakeOver as the WWE takes over the Brooklyn, the New York area once again for this weekend's SummerSlam events. But we're also going to focus a lot on NXT and, well, the rivalry between Johnny Gargano and Tommaso Ciampa, and so much more when it concerns NXT and also the WWE as well. What matches to look for this weekend? What matches to go out of your way to see when it comes to SummerSlam and NXT TakeOver. And also Josh and I are going to return later in the show to talk about Disney and Fox. There's been rumors abound that Fox properties that we hold dear to our heart, including Die Hard, Alien, Predators, and all that, are going to be swept under the rug once the sale is complete and everything's done. All the I's have been dotted, the T's have been crossed. We're going to share our thoughts on if Disney should just put those beloved franchises in the corner for good, or if they should go ahead and continue the process of keeping those profitable and, for the most part, very good franchises alive for some time to come. Josh, it's going to be a great weekend at the movies, I know, as well, with two movies that have hit theaters, with Mile 22 and also as well, what is it? Oh my gosh. And also as well, Crazy Rich Asians. That movie right there, Crazy Rich Asians, is garnered a lot of press in the past few days. I think it's got like a 96 or 97 on the rating on Rotten Tomatoes. And it looks like it's getting off to a strong start and could be really a film worth looking out for the rest of this year.
Yeah, I mean, I've heard good things about it. I actually had no idea it was based on a book, but it's just I think the title is what kind of gives it a lot of cred with people, just because kind of like, those sitcoms they have on like NBC where they're all like off the boat and stuff like that. Like that's clearly like that.
Oh, you mean ABC with Fresh Off the Boat?
Right. And so like that, these titles are clearly ways to market things. You're gonna look into it because you're gonna be like, oh, that's offensive, and then you look into it and you're like, oh, that actually looks kind of good, or you're gonna go watch it because you're like, oh, I like that name. Like it's a clever it's funny how much marketing can be done just with the name of something. and how much that pulls people into it.
Well, hopefully we'll hear. Hopefully we'll get a chance to talk more about it on the Monday episode, because there's some strong themes that I want to talk about and comparisons that a lot of people are making to Black Panther and other movies, because this is one of the first movies to come out with a Asian dominated cast in regards to something that's being marketed worldwide since the Joy Luck Club. I think that came out many years ago, and we're not talking about as far as something that's targeted to just a specific audience overseas or martial arts film or anything like that. This is something entirely different from a romantic comedy type perspective, and it's something really unique. I've seen the trailers. It looks really good and something I want to see, but we will talk more about it if the movie comes. We'll talk more about it and also give you the results of how well it performed over the weekend on our Monday show as well. But right now, we want to focus on things coming this weekend as well. Besides the great movies that are out there, the great movies that are coming out, like Mile 22 and Crazy Rich Asians. First off is Gamescom. I know we're going to talk about SummerSlam with Greg Hall later on in the episode, but Gamescom is coming this weekend to Cologne, Germany. Once again, it's a 10th straight year. It's going to be in Cologne, Germany. Dude, almost 400,000 people go ahead and to this convention. It's one of the largest conventions in the world. As far as gaming is concerned, it is the largest convention, because E3 is just now starting to, to bring out more and more people and allow more and more of the public to get in there, but it's nowhere near what this one does. It is the largest gaming convention of the year, and a big spotlight for many European publishers, distributors, and also development houses. From what I'm seeing, you and I are getting a ton of email and notices in regards to all the different entities that are going to be there. But one entity that's not going to be there is Microsoft. Microsoft in past years has done an Xbox press conference there on many years back to back. They're deciding to skip this year. First off, what does that tell you when Microsoft is missing and skipping out on such a big event? Yes, they're going to have a booth there and whatnot. That's beside the point. But what does that tell you when they're not doing a press conference at Gamescom this year?
So I got like 20 windows open on my computer. No, that's interesting because, we had discussed this back when you were in town and we're doing the 100th episode of PCC, that Microsoft is actually in dual development on 2 different consoles. So I imagine that they kind of have their hands busy. And at this point, if they plan on putting any of these new consoles out in 2020, I don't imagine that they would want to be making any announcements. Maybe, I mean, I could understand them being there showing off some hardware, but I don't think I don't think it represents anything dire happening behind the scenes. I just think that maybe they're devoting their resources to other things right now.
Well, that also tells me that they don't have a lot in the near future to promote, because fall's right around the corner. Also, as well, winter, it's a big time for sales when it comes to video games, and Microsoft is a little bit behind as far as from a first party perspective. Pretty much the conference would be focusing in on the positives of what they have in the current situation, would be the Xbox One X high resolution platform, but also as well the Xbox Game Pass, which is a very good deal still at this point in time. So yeah, it also tells me that
Xbox is at Gamescom though, right? Because I've been seeing them showing new footage of Forza.
Yeah, they're good. They're there as far as the booth is concerned, but they're not doing a press conference.
Oh, got it. Okay, all right.
Yeah, that's what I was talking about, because they've done in the past. They've done press conferences like they do E3 press conferences at Gamescom. So they're not doing that this year. So I think it sticks out like a sore thumb. Why aren't they doing that? And I think that's pretty much because of the fact that they don't have as much to showcase at this point in time that's new and upcoming in the near future.
Well, they gave everything away at E3 though. I mean, over 100 games I want to say they talked about, and like I don't know what the point would be of showing those games again. Maybe if they're a little bit further into development. But let me ask you this: Gamescom, like you have things like Gamescom packs, and I know like some people do press conferences at these gaming, these gaming gatherings, but E3 is really the standard right now for, making big announcements, making a splash into the video game world. And while Gamescom is cool, I always looked at Gamescom as a way to let the smaller developers, the lesser known developers, kind of get their name out there. So I never really thought that Microsoft or Sony or Nintendo really needed to have a big presence there, have a booth there, but they don't need to be like the titans of industry that they are at Gamescom as much as they do at something like E3.
Well, EA, Electronic Arts, has always made a big presence at Gamescom, probably mainly focusing, obviously focusing on their FIFA properties, and they've been a major part of the Gamescom experience. They've had press conferences back to year over year in the past as well. They have made another big move in regards to showcasing Battlefield 5 with a Battlefield 5 trailer in advance of Gamescom. What are your thoughts on Battlefield 5 so far when it comes to what they're shooting for and the fact that they continually take shots at what direction Call of Duty is making at this point in time?
Well, see, I've always liked with Battlefield is that what you see is what you're going to get. There's nothing, nothing hidden there. They've always been very forward about what they're trying to do. Whereas Call of Duty has kind of lost its identity over the years and kind of gone for the future, the futuristic aspects or like the alternate timeline aspects. But Battlefield has always been like, and I love the way that they're saying, hey, you guys already know you played the last Battlefield. You know that our multiplayer is going to be awesome, but let me show you this single player. And that is something that Call of Duty players, the chances are high they're never going to get again. So I think, Call of Duty kind of took themselves out of the market in that aspect. And I don't know, man, like I'm super impressed with what I've seen with Battlefield because not only are they showing they're appealing to the need for female protagonists, these emotional stories featuring strong female leads like we saw at E3, they're also giving us an in-depth multiplayer that feels satisfying to play as well as a not yeah, a multi sorry, I said multiplayer, single player that feels satisfying to play, as well as a multiplayer that is not, there's no gimmicks. Call of Duty is full of gimmicks, but Battlefield has always been, you just do your thing, you play, and there's no like nothing future. You don't have jetpacks, you don't have any of that stuff. You're just out there playing and you can play with your buddies and it's super accessible. Whereas Call of Duty, you almost have to go in it with a prior knowledge of the franchise and of what they're trying to do. And by the time you get into it, the match is already so unevenly laid out that it's almost impossible to play. So where do you stand on that?
Right now, actually, for many years now, I have preferred Battlefield over what Call of Duty has been doing over the course of several years. The zombie factor kind of intrigued me when it first came out, but after that, it just seems like Call of Duty was just putting out something year after year after year that just seemed like a retread of what they did the year before. Nothing interesting, nothing inspiring. Although I kind of like the fact that they were going to the future. That aspect for me worked well, but unfortunately for gamers, it did not work well at all. And that's why they reverted back to previous time periods. I'm still a big fan of Modern Warfare. Call of Duty 4 Modern Warfare was awesome experience for me. I still like it. I still like my shooters in a modern format from time to time as well. I hope that at some point in time they all revert back to a modern format. I know going into a World War I and now World War II scenario, it's something that harkens back to the original part of where these series it goes back to where these series originated from. I appreciate that and enjoy it every now and then, but I'd like to see them go back into a modern setting. But I understand there was too many modern shooters, which was the reason why that they left those time periods in the first place. I am just still a big fan of the Battlefield series. As I told you before we went on the air, I still remember one of my favorite trailers to this day. And one of these days we got to talk about our favorite game trailers, because anybody who's out there that doesn't recognize Battlefield 3 and the Caspian border gameplay, and that trailer alone just sold me and hooked me into Battlefield 3. that and the other trailer that had the whole building, coming down and all that. I miss those experiences, and I miss those as part of the Battlefield, type scenario. So hopefully it will go back to that at some point in time. But it still looks like it's going to be a really solid experience with a campaign that they are still spending a inordinate amount of time on, and that to me is really pleasing as a fan, that they still want to have a story that communicates, even though most of the people will be heading straight for the multiplayer option.
Yeah, I mean, you know me, I'm not a huge multiplayer fan, but I've always liked Battlefield. I've always respected what they do. There, like I mentioned, there's no gimmicks like Call of Duty, and the game just feels a lot more accessible to me. Like I'm not a big like multiplayer person, but I can jump in there and I can still have a good time. Whereas with Call of Duty, I jump in there, I just get super frustrated, don't even want to play it anymore. So from that aspect, I've always liked Battlefield a lot better. What about where do you stand on Medal of Honor? We have not seen a Medal of Honor game in a really long time.
Medal of Honor was something that liked the original iterations of the series. I actually played through them and enjoyed them, but and the narrative behind them were really strong. But this was one where it went to a modern setting, and unfortunately, it just didn't connect with audiences. It was hyped, it was packaged, it was advertised, but unfortunately, it did not connect with audiences when it came into a modern setting. Plus, the fact that you cannot have Medal of Honor and Battlefield and give both the equal kind of love that they both deserve. So it was easy to see that Battlefield was the one that they were interested in, and they were more willing to go ahead and give more time to, which put Medal of Honor to the wayside. And unfortunately, for fans of that series, it doesn't look like we're going to get anything anytime in the near future from the Medal of Honor series, because of the fact we also have the Star Wars Battlefront series alternating in years with the Battlefield series.
Yeah, true. I don't think it's a series that's going to be missed. They did have some memorable games. I did enjoy Medal of Honor Airborne when that came out. That was a very difficult game, but it's fun to play and satisfying. Real quick, I just remembered when we were talking about conferences, Bethesda is another one that like they just had QuakeCon, so showing up at Gamescom would be kind of counterintuitive because it's just there's so many conferences happening so close to each other. And there's even rumors that E3 might not have big conferences soon enough. So I don't know. I get it. I get why these big companies want to put resources towards other things, especially when you hear about like all the closures of the smaller studios under their umbrellas and all that.
And also the fact that Nintendo Directs have done in the past, this year notwithstanding, the Nintendo Directs in the past have proven to be something that's been a good hit for them. But I hope that the press conferences will continue, because I like the pomp, I like the circumstances, I like the big crowds, I like them showing off their wares in virtually all of them, virtually all of the major players showing off their wares in such a large vaunted format that makes the whole E3 experience seem really special, that makes the video game marketplace seem really special. I understand that there are costs involved, but I really like the fact when they do it, it just makes the gaming experience that much more valuable, and it shows to the fans that you actually care about the stuff that you're actually producing, and that you wanted to succeed at a higher level than what you would do if you just wanted to show a YouTube trailer and whatnot. So I'm really am hopeful that the press conferences will continue in whatever platform. I know we'll probably see one at the PlayStation Experience by Sony, and that's great. But for right now, Gamescom is still going to go strong. I'm looking forward to seeing a lot of the European distributors, publishers, and development houses that don't go to E3. What are they going to show off there at Gamescom? Because there's going to be a lot to see and a lot to cover. I know our GameSource Facebook site will be covering a lot of these aspects at Gamescom. If there's anything good, we're going to be sharing it right there on the GameSource Facebook site. So follow that if you can. And it just looks like overall people seem to love and enjoy the Gamescom experience, because like almost 400,000 people, man, for a gaming convention. That is truly a remarkable thing. And 10, 15 years ago, we didn't think this would be happening when E3 was just the big conference in town, and there was nothing else really to supplant that outside of maybe the Tokyo Game Show and whatnot. But so many years later, there's conferences all over the place. And I know sometimes we complain that it becomes muddled and becomes a little bit repetitive and whatnot, but it's just so good for us gamers to have all these different options, to see all these different companies show off their wares to a larger public. So to me, to me, there's more, to me, the more conferences, the better. And I think it really works out well in the long run for the gamer as well.
How much of that, like the attendance, like especially like E3's going up, how much of that do you think has to do with all these smaller news outlets and podcasts popping up? Because, I was listening to what was it? What's his name? Not the guy who does they call him the Reverend. Doki Doki is his thing. Oh shoot. Jared something or other. Anyways, he was saying he was talking on his YouTube channel, and he was saying that right now it's nearly impossible to get into the gaming industry because you have to know someone, you have to have someone who's willing to give you a chance. But the funny thing is, the gaming industry has never been more accessible than it is now. Whether or not you want to get big, though, that's a whole other thing in itself, and it seems like you would need to have somebody push you out into the spotlight a little bit more.
That to me is no different than any other major industry as far as trying to move up. And you can have a lot of talent, but it really does help you if you know the right people and have the right connections. I was in the film industry, and I understood very early on, when I saw and I observed, from what I saw and what I observed, that if you know the right people, no matter what, you could go a lot of places and get a lot of chances within the industry. Same thing goes for my years here in Vegas when it comes to the strip hotels and things of that nature. If you know the right people, you can get a lot of things, or it can go a lot of way. It can go a long way. If you know the right people, it can go a long way for you as well. So the game industry the game industry at this point in time should be just the same way. And but like you said, with smaller developers, it really, anybody can go ahead and produce a game. I mean, you and I right now can go ahead and commit 2 years of our life to do it and make a Pop Culture Cosmos game that might get some eyes on it, might get some sales and whatnot. But if we tried to say, hey,
we would have too many playable characters.
Yes, this is probably true. If we knocked on the door of Bethesda or Rockstar or any other major publisher or developer that's out there, they'd probably laugh in our face unless we really had something that would sell in a major form. So I hear you on that. It is still a tough ride in the game industry, but there are still options and availability there for a lot of people if they go ahead and put the work in, just like we try to put the work in here when it comes to Humanica Media and the Pop Culture Cosmos. What are your thoughts on the? Well, it's let me close like this, and so it's going to be a great weekend at Gamescom. Like I said, almost 400,000 people will be all storming into the areas that are there. I know, Josh, you and I probably want to go one of these days and cover Gamescom. That would be an awesome thing to do indeed. But for right now, Germany is slammed with a whole bunch of gamers and gaming enthusiasts, almost 400,000 wide, because it is truly a great time to be a gamer right now, and especially because Gamescom is going to showcase a lot of games that you may not normally have caught on, and eventually will. And what it will do is what it will do is maybe put a lot of more games on your gaming radar for the fall and going forward. So it's a good chance to keep an eye out on what's going on at Gamescom, because there could be a lot of games that might meet your fancy down the road. What are your thoughts on Gamescom? Let us know everything you'd like to see or you'd like to hear from, all the games that are out there. What are your thoughts on Gamescom as a whole? Do you like what's going on with everything that goes on in Cologne, Germany? Are you a big fan of following what's up to date? Do you think it's on a par with Tokyo Game Show, E3, and all the other big shows out there? Share us your thoughts, popculturecosmos@yahoo.com. Also as well, Pop Culture Cosmos, Humanity Media, and Game Source on Facebook and Twitter as well. Well, like I said, we've got a great show coming up for you today. We've got Rob McCallum coming up in the Cosmic Crossfire right after this. And also as well, we got Greg Hall from We Podcast and We Know Things previewing SummerSlam and also the NXT TakeOver in New York. And coming up later in the show, Josh and I will be talking about the Fox properties now owned by Disney and where they're headed next. This is a PCC Multiverse. Coming up next, we've got Greg Hall from We Podcast and We Know Things talking about previewing WWE SummerSlam and NXT TakeOver. This is the PCC Multiverse. And we're back to close out the show. This is Gerald Glassford from PCC Multiverse. This is Gerald Glassford from Pop Culture Cosmos. You got to make sure and check out our site on Facebook, Pop Culture Cosmos, so you can get the latest listing of where we're at, because we're being played on radio 7 days a week, on online radio and over-the-air radio stations. You got to check out our listing on Pop Culture Cosmos on Facebook, and also the many podcast networks like Podbean, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and over 30 more different outlets that were there. Josh, I know you got a great thing going on with Humanity Media. What's coming up, man, with Topicocalypse and everything going on at Humanity Media?
Sorry, dogs are barking. Yeah, we're working on something. We'll be going over to video here soon also, so you'll be able to see that. But I just dropped a new episode about oh shoot, I cannot even remember now. Why is this happening to me?
It's called getting old, my friend.
Gosh, that bothers me. We did an episode on last week. We did an episode. Oh, reality of superpowers. So like I was watching Jessica Jones, and they're talking about how like what would it talks about prejudice towards powered people. So I was wondering what would happen if an actual powered person was discovered today. And we dig into that. There's a lot of theories, a lot of great theories. My main theory is that they would probably disappear, or the government would try to coerce them into working for them by threatening their family or something like that. But yeah, give it a listen. It's definitely one of my more favorite episodes that we've done.
That's awesome indeed. It is like he said, Topicocalypse. You got to check it out today on Podbean, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and so many other outlets. Plus also each week at 7 p.m. Eastern, 4 p.m. Pacific on the Podcast Radio Network as well. Any last thoughts on the way out, my friend?
That's it. I mean, the Pop Culture Cosmos, we got some interesting things going on. Sorry, the dogs. We got some interesting things going on behind the scenes, so definitely be staying tuned for more news on that stuff. We're working on some big things. Excited to reveal it. Give it some time.
And one thing we have revealed is that the Fantasy Football Pater podcast is coming home right over here each and every week to the Pop Culture Cosmos channel on all of our podcast networks. Tyler Baker is going to be doing the show and putting his show on our network. Not only is he going to be appearing on our shows during the football season, but he's also going to be having his show, the Fantasy Football Pater podcast, on our channel as well. So we're looking forward to that. And we've started a fantasy football league. It's going to be through ESPN. And if you want more information, it's absolutely free. We're going to do a draft later this month. Just send us an email here, right here. Just send us an email right here at popculturecosmos@yahoo.com. So for Josh Peterson, this is Gerald Glassford. It's another beautiful day in paradise right here in the PCC Multiverse. We thank you for listening. And here's hoping you have yourself a great day.